Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Xcession ESM Everything Service Management podcast. Today, we've got our roving reporters, Sunil and Mark, fresh back from Vegas, where they attended ServiceNow Knowledge 2025. I'm going to share their views on it. Great to have you back over this side of the Atlantic. What was it like? Can you tell us a bit, how was the event? How busy was it? Talk about the scope. Give us some insights. Sunil, maybe you'd kick us off with that, and Mark, share some views as well.
Yeah, sure. So, well, what was it like? I mean, it was massive, right? I think it's the biggest knowledge that ServiceNow have ever done. I think, I don't know the numbers, but I think there was something like 25 or 30,000 attendees.
25,000.
Yeah, 25,000 attendees. I mean, the event was across two very large hotels in Las Vegas, the Venetian and the Wynn. There were, I'm told, over 500 breakout sessions that happened. They had turned the car park, the underground car park in the Venetian into the lunch hall. And it was really actually, I would say, it felt like a statement, right? It felt like ServiceNow saying, we have huge ambition to grow, and we want to make sure that our customers and our partners, they are extremely partner-centric, right? But those customers and partners go on this transformation journey with them. So it was actually, I mean, it incredibly well run as well, like absolutely smooth as clockwork. It was, yeah. Very, very impressive. What did you think, Mark?
I loved it. Yeah, the main thing, I actually really enjoyed it. From the moment it started every day till the end of the day was full on.
Yeah,
there was many sessions in the expo hall, in the breakout sessions, one-to-one demos with people, interactions with different partners and vendors. The whole thing was amazing, and I learned more in 2 days than I have in a very long time.
So what I'm hearing here is it highly positive and thoroughly recommended. Yeah.
Okay, I'll start saving for a ticket. Anybody who works in this ServiceNow ecosystem to attend Knowledge probably more than once, because you will learn a lot, gain a lot, meet a lot of people. It also helps to understand ServiceNow's vision for where they are and where they're going, because it has definitely changed in the last 12 months. And you have to get on the train, I think. Yeah, the train is moving. You got to get on it.
Interesting. So given kind of the hype around AI that we've seen and ServiceNow and the Agentic AI space, talk to me about the kind of key messages and the key themes that you were seeing there, given, Sunil, what you said about this positioning piece and the statement. Perhaps, Mark, if you'd like to comment on that first, and then, Sunil, any additional thoughts?
I think the key message for me is that ServiceNow has changed. It's no longer a platform for digital transformation. It's an AI platform. They constantly refer to it that way as the ServiceNow AI platform. They are all in, and they want their platform to be a key platform for organizations who want to use data and workflows and AI to drive business transformation, business change, to become more agile, and to make them focus on what they can actually do rather than actually focusing on operations. It's a key thing. It's a huge transformation platform.
Yeah, I would completely. I mean, that's absolutely right. So it's definitely not ITSM. Yeah, it's not IT. It's not digital, as Mark says. It is business transformation, and the positioning of ServiceNow is very much directed at board level in the customer organization. They are saying to the CEO, you need to be agile, you need to be responsive to your market. If you are not quick to change, then you will lose market share. They are saying to the technology function, CIO, CTO in the customer organization, that this is the platform to enable that level of agility and dynamism that your CEO demands of you. They are saying to HR, for example, the CHRO, that you need to be able to manage a changing workforce, right? How do you manage across the enterprise, tens, hundreds of thousands of employees in a efficient manner to be able to leverage and take most advantage of their skills? At a COO level, they're talking about how do you drive operational efficiency, 24/7 working via AI agents, etc. So they really have taken what was a technology-focused message a few years ago, right, and have spread that message across the entire C-suite. And I think they're talking to shareholders as well. If you're a shareholder of an organization and you are looking at your C-suite to deliver value on your shareholding, they are saying we are the primary, possibly the only tool set out there to deliver that shareholder return. It is an amazingly well crafted and well thought through set of messages.
So beyond IT, it's outgrown IT, but it's still capable for IT and ITSM. But the vision from ServiceNow is way beyond that. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
I would add that a key message from last week was ServiceNow's attack on the CRM market, and to actually go after CRM market. They've got coverage now from customer support, which they had before, to sales and order management. They filled a few gaps there with their acquisition of Logic.ai for CPQ, and they've got a very robust field service management offering. So they've got the 3 pillars of CRM very much covered now. They also have a specific new launch in relation to Core Business Suite, which is really supporting the kind of GBS scenarios where you've got global business services supporting your organization globally, providing finance, procurement, legal, etc., all in one platform. Yeah, all underpinned by the key elements of the platform, which are driven by workflow and now Agentic AI.
Okay. So thinking on that sort of business transformation theme, putting the ServiceNow lenses on, talk us through what they could have put forward with respect to that, because someone, to your point, it's business transformation, it's not IT anymore. How would you sort of see the messaging coming through? What's your digest on that?
Well, I'll have a crack at that if you like. So
Yeah.
I mean, it really for me falls into 3 pillars. Okay, so Agentic AI, okay, AI workers, okay, a unified data platform. So we all know, right, that in order to be effective with AI, you need to have the underpinning data available, right, and automated workflows. So automated workflows has always been a core part and will continue to be a core part of the ServiceNow platform. But I think now what ServiceNow are talking about is not just workflows that sit within the ServiceNow platform, but being able to access workflows that sit in other tool sets outside of the ServiceNow platform. They're talking about being able to access data via Workflow Data Fabric that sits outside of the ServiceNow platform. And they're talking about Agentic AI that is both ServiceNow agents, but also agents that exist from other enterprise vendors as well, application vendors. So what they're trying to do, this concept of business transformation, right, is they're trying to unify across the organization, the workers, the data that supports the workers, and then the workflows that actually enact whatever it is that those workers need to happen. That was sort of my take on it, Mark. What's your view?
I'd agree on all those points. I think the other one that's key for me is speed. Yeah, they are really focused on the platform being fast, being able to execute lots of transactions simultaneously very quickly. It's There's a huge amount of focus there, really forward thinking in relation to their platform design and the architecture of the platform. There's, the messages you mentioned there, some are key. I think workflow data fabric is going to be a key component of the ServiceNow platform moving forward. That is the hub of data and how workflows would consume that. They've built zero copy to allow you to access data in different systems. On one stage, there was a talk between Snowflake, Databricks, and Google Cloud. I haven't seen those people on the same stage anywhere. So that tells you the power of what they can bring together. So it's phenomenal. All those companies are huge, and all those companies know that their clients are using ServiceNow.
Yeah. Just another thing, Dan. Sorry to just jump in on that. But actually, if you stop for a minute and think about the ambition of what they're doing, there are not many vendors that I am aware of. I could be wrong, but there are not many vendors that actually have a vision that extends beyond their own application stack, right? But what ServiceNow are trying to do with, for example, the control tower for AI agents, right, is actually use that to control agents, as I mentioned, from other applications via the zero copy approach in workflow data fabric, right? They are trying to consolidate data from other applications not into the ServiceNow platform. They're not copying it in, but they're leveraging it, right, to be able to make decisions using the ServiceNow platform. And this idea of using workflows in other applications as well. Their vision is not just for ServiceNow, right? Their vision is across all of the core enterprise applications that an enterprise would need and use. I mean, it's quite staggering in many ways, that, isn't it? That vision across all of that scope. And many other vendors will spend their time looking in, right, at what they're doing. These guys are definitely looking out.
So they've got the jump on these other vendors potentially in terms of, this is the platform to use because all of your existing solutions, you don't need to worry about that. We can enact on the data there with, I presume, minimal, but I'm sure there's a considerable amount of technical elements to put into place to enable all of that to work. Or I could be quite wrong on there, and it's plug and play. But I guess
no, it's not going to. It's definitely not going to be plug and play. But.
Yeah, for sure. So thinking on the open agentic AI, I'm sure that was a very hot topic whilst you were there. What, if any, talks did you kind of attend, or sort of what was the word on the street around that? Can we dive in a little bit deeper on that? I think that's going to be a very topical topic for the remainder of this year and beyond. Agentic, that's the key word, I think. Mark, share of you,
yeah. So in the days that we were there, I would have attended a lot of sessions around agentic AI in different discussions, some kind of theory-based discussions, some real use cases that were shown and demoed. They were being demoed all day. Just to give you an idea of how people were interested in this, there was a build an AI agent kind of course. It ran for about maybe half an hour, and the queue was streaming all the way through the expo theater all day long, every day. The two biggest queues in Knowledge were for Build an AI Agent and for the new ServiceNow University, which they're very, very proud of, and they rebranded Now Learning, and it's a lot better. It's gamified. It's got a lot more tracks in relation to you as a person and for partners as well, and everyone's building their ServiceNow team. It's a lot more straightforward. I think they've done a good job on that. But coming back to the Agentic AI, basically ServiceNow and other partners are building AI agents as we speak. Yeah, they are various different agents. They're working across all the functions in ServiceNow. So every ServiceNow module will have AI agents built into it. They could be your own agents. They could be off-the-shelf agents that ServiceNow are building, or they could be agents that are built by partners. These agents will perform many, many different tasks. They're, to me, are a next level of automation that we've had in the past. It's a move away from defined automation, if that makes sense, to reason-based automation, right? That's the way I describe it. And these agents will have a lot more intelligence built into them, but still have the ability to interact with the human agent for validation of what they're doing. An agent is basically has a name, a description, says a prompt about what it does, and it has then a set of tools associated with it. And these tools can be our key components of the ServiceNow platform, be they flows, subflows, catalog items, scripts. So using all the power of the ServiceNow platform, but they are building these into a defined agent. And these agents get called in by the orchestrator. So the orchestrator then will say, based on the use case I have, which agent do I assign this to? Or agents, yeah? So you can have multiple agents running in parallel also, yeah? And overarching this then is what's called the AI control tower, where you can actually see all the agents that you have running, what they're doing, the time they're saving, what they've executed on. So it's very, very robust. So they've used the power of the platform from a platform analytics perspective, the workflow element of the platform, bringing data from ServiceNow and other systems into the platform via Workflow Data Fabric, and using then the key components of ServiceNow's workflow engines, be they flows, subflows, etc., to execute. It is a fascinating scenario, and it really has blown my mind, to be honest with you. Right?
Yeah. So that sounds to me like, in very simple Dan terms, like an AI agent app store, right? So you can look for an agent that does a specific job. There's a prompt, it tells you what they do, so the job description of the agent, and that's available to anybody using the ServiceNow platform. Is that right?
ServiceNow platform, assuming they've got the licenses to use that.
Right.
But the real power, Dan, is building your own AI agents. Mm-hmm. Able to build in the same way that you've in the past we've built flows and automations on the ServiceNow platform. You're now able to build your own agents. And what most organizations who are more forward thinking will build their own AI agents. Out of the box is kind of what I would describe them as are ideas for you to consume.
They're templates.
So yeah, they're basically templates, but they're also, some of them may be actually useful out of the box and you might get some value out of them, but the real value is where people apply their workflows into agentic AI and building their own agents. It's going to be very, very interesting. Yeah.
What they are doing, right, which I think to this point, right, is that they have so ServiceNow has recently remodeled its own business, right, to be much more sector focused. So they have actually gone out and hired a whole bunch of people from various sectors, banking, financial services, insurance, et cetera, right, to come in. The reason that they have done that is because what they are trying to do now is capture sector-specific use cases and build agentic AI solutions that are focused very specifically on those sector-specific use cases. So, for example, one of the talks that I saw was around financial services and banking and dispute resolution. So what they have done is they have built an orchestrator agent and a number of sub-agents, worker agents that will handle the process of dispute management for banks. Now that's typically, in most banks, a large number of people, right, that sit on a desk, they take a phone call, they query the customer, they kick off a number of different processes that interface between their team and other teams in the bank, all with the aim of getting through to that resolution. Now, what ServiceNow have done is built agents, right, that will take components of what a human agent used to do and replace those with an AI agent. So that's one example. They have a number of other examples in different sectors. And actually, this is a big part of how you launch into those sectors with an ROI, okay? Because actually what you're doing is you're taking the, high value to the customer, but low value to the bank, problem, use case, and saying we'll automate that and reduce your cost of delivering a great service to the customer.
Phenomenal, really. Yeah.
Yeah, it is phenomenal. It is phenomenal, actually. The ambition of it is phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the ambition piece, and so thinking as a customer, one of these, let's say, financial institutions, and maybe they have ServiceNow in situ already, what do they, and again, taking from what you've seen at Knowledge perhaps and other insights, what do they then perhaps need to start thinking about to benefit from all of these, technological advancements and capabilities that the platform now inherently offers? What, I guess, looking at it from, let's say, a strategy point of view, things like data quality, what are your thoughts there? What insights from Knowledge might there be? What's the kind of guidance, I suppose, that ServiceNow is suggesting to help their customers and prospective customers get on board the ServiceNow train?
Yeah, it's interesting, Dan. I went to a couple of sessions in relation to this kind of topic, and a lot of focus of the week was on data, right? There's a huge focus. They obviously announced last week that they are acquiring Data.World. Data.World will be able to support them on the data catalog requirements, data governance, data strategies. So that's all going to be very, very important. So data is an underpinning fundamental for what you do in Agentic AI in the future, right? And then from that, there's more deeper sessions that I went to, which were around what do you need to do to prepare for an Agentic AI use case. And the key focus on that really is on your data. Is it available? Can I use it? Is it of good quality? Is it maintained? How often is it updated? Is it updated in the timeframes I need it to be used for my workflows? So there's a huge amount of focus on that. So there's a lot of thought needs to go into this. And the danger, I would say, is that you dive into building AI agents and then they would fall over because your data is not great. You need to have a clear data strategy. Yeah, you need to have data governance processes in place. You need to understand your data catalog and how ServiceNow plays a role in that data catalog by bringing data from other systems into ServiceNow and using the data within ServiceNow. So in examples of IT, we've got your ITSM data model plus the CMD data model, the CSDM data model. So that's all very, very important in that context, but there needs to be a huge focus on your data to be ready to do this well. And in some ways, people may have to go backwards to start fixing their data in order to go forwards faster. Yeah, that might not be a very nice thing to hear, but I think that some people will actually have to do that depending on the level of quality of their data. The people who own data, manage data in the future are as important as the people who build these AI agents, in my opinion.
Definitely.
That classic garbage in, garbage out scenario that we talk a lot about, right?
Yeah, that term would have been used quite a lot last week.
Yeah. And
there needs to be a very thoughtful approach to doing this. Diving into the shiny build an agent sounds great, and even me as I'm a technologist, I think it's very, very interesting. But to make it work at scale and to make it work for your business and your business processes, you need to have the right data in place.
So I totally agree with that. So you need a strategy, right? Don't you?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think we talk about at Xcession a lot, right, is the kind of key business outcomes that you look to drive, right? And I think that's fundamental to the strategy that you follow. So are you doing this because, for example, you want to really drive an improvement in customer experience, right? Or your customers. Yeah. Do you want to become more agile in your market space as a business, right? Do you want to drive efficiency and productivity? So I'm going to give you an example, right? One of the big customers that really stood up there and said, listen, we're all in on ServiceNow was Stellantis. They make lots of different brands of cars, right? So, in the automotive sector, agility is important, right? But it's probably not as important as efficiency, right? On your production line, right? The more efficiently you can roll a car off the production line, okay, the more competitive you can be in the marketplace, right? The more competitive you are in the marketplace, the more cars you shift, etc. So actually, what are the business outcomes you're looking to drive, right? And I would strongly encourage customers not to say all of them, right? And then that sort of determines your strategy, right? So if you have AI agents focused on, for example, operational efficiency, right, then what are the key data sources that you need in order to drive that operational efficiency, etc. So I think that's really important. There is another couple of strands that are actually very people orientated, that did come up in a couple of sessions, right? The first of those is, you have a significant implication here of agents on people in your organization. One of those potential implications is that you don't need as many, right? That's not a very acceptable outcome, certainly in the current world, right? So if you're not going to release people, then you have to reskill them. Okay, you have to take those people who used to do manual jobs or jobs that an agent now does, and you have to reskill them to work more efficiently with agents that are doing that lower level of work, right? So that those people themselves, right, can add more value back to the business. So reskilling people in their jobs is one big element of it. Another element of it is the skill set to prompt or write the prompts for agents, right, is very different, I think, to traditional technology skill sets, right? It is much more business analysis focused, right? And being able to translate a business process, the people that work within that process and the outcome into a natural language prompt, right? It's no longer scripting and coding hundreds of thousands of lines of code. So there are real people considerations in this. And I think, Mark, you talked about one of the keynote speakers. I think it was it Jensen from NVIDIA, who said, what was the quote?
The IT will be more like the HR of the future workforce.
Yeah.
So in simple terms, what that means is that IT will be delivering digital employees alongside HR managing the human ones. And I think there'll be even a concept of onboarding and offboarding. You can imagine in the future, you might, in the same way that we hire temporary workers, contingent workers in organizations, you may actually have to hire contingent digital employees and digital agents in the future. It's mind-blowing what's going on. We're at the start, obviously, but it's really, really interesting.
But
coming back to your point, yeah.
I was going to say that's really valid, because actually, just because it's a digital agent doesn't mean that it doesn't have to follow your policy on modern slavery, or or your data protection policy, right? They have to comply with those regulatory requirements anyway.
Yeah. I think just to echo maybe a bit what you were saying there, Sunil, would be that I would look at this as a whole kind of people, process, technology, and data. Where having worked in IT for a long time, we would have had huge focus on people, process, and technology to achieve outcomes. Now we're going to have a focus on people, process, technology, and data to execute on workflows and outcomes. And there'd be really 4 key pillars, because you need to understand the people. People are going to change. How they actually do their jobs will change. They may spend less time on the phone, less time gathering information from a customer in relation to an issue they may have, or less time gathering log files if it's an infrastructure and network engineer, but more time executing, managing, prompting, understanding of the key business processes that people follow, where even today we would have processes, but we may not have the detail of the exact process that's followed for a particular use case. That's all going to have to be mapped out. That's going to be a huge change, because individual use cases have to be mapped out at a granular level of detail, prompted accordingly, and then tools aligned to execute on those tasks that a human is doing today. And that will require data to be brought in at certain times, or data to be available. So you're bringing it all together now. You've got your people, your process, your technology tools that you're using. They'll be within ServiceNow and within other applications, and then your data that underpins that. So it's very, very interesting. I'd like to build a diagram for this sometime if I'm not the most creative person in the world, but I will try and do something, because it actually is very, very interesting. And that's what people are going to have to do. Processes will change, and high-level processes will become more lower level, I would say, in the future as we go along. Right. I actually envisage a world where traditional ways of working that we have would no longer exist in the same way they do today. Right? Entry points of the service will change, channels will change. A lot of things are going to change over the coming years.
I think a lot of people are thinking about that what I call a paradigm shift. It's going to be effectively, and it's going to be very interesting. That's the AI listening in on us and just sounding an alarm there.
It's Bill McDermott calling.
He's not ringing you again, is he, Mark?
Yeah, I can't get him to stop calling me.
Yeah. What do we do next, Mark? That was great. What do we do next?
It does. I mean, it truly sounds incredible. As somebody who sort of grew up and you see the science fiction films and they're talking to the computers and the computers are responding. We're not far off of that now in reality.
No. Last week, Dan, we saw voice-enabled agents.
Yeah.
So
multimodal was a big focus, right? They said they are ServiceNow building LLMs to be multimodal deliberately, right? Because they want voice, they want visual, they want written,
they want the works, right? Okay, so the computer can actually say no now. That's the future here. But thinking on that then, and you've got your agents, your data quality is good. You're satisfied with that. You've implemented this sort of strategy to onboard, because I think that's what it will be termed as soon. IT agentic agents to do roles. Did ServiceNow kind of walk through any sort of themes around what the testing would need to look like, or any kind of methodologies and best practices to approach that, so that you've created these things? Now we're going to put them into production, release them into the wild, whatever the case may be. How do they monitor that? Or was there a lot of talk around guardrails and ensuring that these things can't go, to use an American expression, off the reservation and cause any damage?
There was some interesting use cases that aligned to this, right? So I saw a very interesting use case about where some of our clients would use this now, where you book an appointment with IT, right? And when you book an appointment to IT at the moment in ServiceNow, you are given available slots within ServiceNow. You have to go and check your own calendar and then find somewhere that works and you book it. The agent now will enable you to do that autonomously. You give it access to as a personal access token to your calendar. The agent will pick up that it's talking to you, use that access token to access your calendar and your calendar only, find an available slot in your calendar, find an available slot in the team's calendar that's providing that service, and it's all done autonomously. Autonomous IT and autonomous was used a lot last week, and I would be a huge fan of that and as a target to attain to. But that's a good example of whereby you can have a use case using your data. The security restrictions are applied to your data only. It's not going to book a calendar entry in someone else's calendar or allow that mistake. And you can test this. And testing of AI agents, for example, is a key focus of ServiceNow. Everyone who builds an AI agent has to go through a test process for it, right? And you can see exactly what it's doing in various different routes it would follow based on the inputs that it has. So that's a huge thing. I think data security, data segregation, data access, these are all very, very, very important points. Yeah. And everything that would be another huge focus for this. When I say data, there's a whole element to data that I talk about. Yeah. Which is, what can the agent do? How can it interact with the data? The guardrails around it will be hugely important. And security teams are going to get busier, in my opinion. Yeah.
But there's also transparency about how the AI has arrived at the output that it has. So if there should be a need for investigation, it's not a black box system. There's windows in, right? That's great to hear.
There's also, you also have to just build, in the same way you build automations in the past, that good design that if it failed for whatever reason, it would assign it to a human and a team to do something. This will all be built into the same processes.
There are, I think we have to acknowledge that we're very early in this journey. ServiceNow are definitely trying to make the most of first mover advantage, I think. Certainly in the vendor landscape that we operate within. But, to give you an example, I think, of how early in the journey we are, ServiceNow is customer zero. I was in a talk where they said that there are 200 agents currently working in ServiceNow itself. And so therefore, right, I think that's quite early stage. There was, in this talk, quite a lot of discussion around how you go about identifying where agents are not delivering the outcome that you're looking for, right? Where in the process, right, the end-to-end process, the issues are. Because prompt engineering is not an exact science yet. And where you have multiple agents that hand off to each other, then that's quite non-deterministic, right? If agent one makes what would in its process be an acceptably small deviance from the norm, what happens when that then gets to agent 4, right? And it's quite a different outcome to what was being expected. I mean, I'm not talking end of the world, right? I mean, we're talking about someone booking holiday or something, right? So, quite easy reversible, but actually there is a process there around trying to identify where it's gone wrong, right? And ServiceNow are taking a view around process mining rather than looking at logs, right, and trying to work out from logs. They're looking at process mining and looking at where the deviances are in the various stages in the process, and then addressing those key areas. So I think they are also learning, all right, about how you support this new kind of way of working, and they are also learning about prompt engineering as well. There is an element of trial and error here to try and make sure that you're getting exactly the same output, right, consistently from a prompt that you use, and the interface between those prompts and the underpinning LLM. So this is another component of it, right? The LLM that supports, the agents. Well, different LLMs are better and worse than different things, right? We all know that ChatGPT is, very useful for certain things, but that Claude writes better copy, as an example, or Perplexity will, is great for research, but perhaps not so good at writing code. Maybe Grok is good at writing code. I have no idea. But my point there is that actually it's not just the agent, it's the underpinning LLM and how they interface with each other as well. That's something that I think, is a learning experience.
It sounds as though there's a lot to think about, which is
Yes.
all in good time. So just kind of as a wrap up then, and thinking on all of everything you've shared there, knowledge really great. And I guess a big question on everybody's lips is, well, how much does this cost? What are the licensing fees and structure? What does that look like? What was shared knowledge about that? And perhaps we can kind of just have a quick chat about those. What should people be expecting from a bottom line?
I think go and talk to your ServiceNow rep is the answer that I would give to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, Dan, I think even the folks at ServiceNow would recognize, right, that like I said, early in the journey, and they, I think, are probably still working it through.
So potential for early adoption and some incentives around that, possibly.
I think also just in the industry in general, I went to an interesting talk on this last week too, and the industry in general sounds like they are figuring out how they monetize agentic AI, right? And for ServiceNow as a platform, it's probably maybe easier, but if you are actually building agents as a a company or whatever, or things like that, it's how you monetize that, what are your costs involved, how do you charge for that, what markup or margin are you making? It's all very, very interesting. It's going to take a lot of time to work that out, but the key thing if you're using ServiceNow is you have to have an interface to conversational interfaces. So that's a key thing to be able to trigger and use agentic AI in the ServiceNow platform. So having that as a first step, having conversational interfaces baked into how you use ServiceNow is a step in the right journey to get there.
Now assist, you mean, right? You have to have now assist.
Yeah. So and what I mean by that is conversational interfaces. Yeah.
So just very briefly, I know we're going to wrap up, Dan, but talking about monetizing, I mean, I think this is fascinating, right? But there was an analyst, and I can't remember either her name or where she worked, I'm afraid. I think maybe Forrester, but I could be wrong there. But she was saying that actually organizations need to look at agentic AI from an innovation perspective, right? And I think what I took from that was that it is probably easier to write a business case for agentic AI to do something new that you haven't done before, right, than it is to write a business case for using agentic AI to replace something that you already do today. So, for example, right, if you're talking about taking people off a service desk, right, because you can use agents, that's difficult, right? That's a difficult business case. I think there probably isn't the data available today to be able to make those decisions very easily. But if your cost base for a new service is predicated on agents, right, then you're not talking about replacing. What you're talking about is a cost model that builds the margin in, whatever that is, right, based on the costs of the agents and the underpinning data requirements, workflows, etc. So actually probably easier to innovate than to replace.
It'll be very interesting. Like a lot of SIs, etc., providing large services in the industry at the moment, how they build and deliver these services is going to change exponentially for them. So they're going to have to, as you say, innovate to be able to win market share and hold market share. So the tradition of P times Q, people equals cost, and adding markup to that margin, that will all change. All right. So there'll be some level of people, but there will be also have to build in some digital workers to assist these people. And people who are buying these services are going to expect that level of innovation massively over the coming years.
I agree.
I can't imagine a big RFP coming out without some level of agentic AI being required and executed in it.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Mark, Sunil, thank you very much for sharing the insights and your experiences at Knowledge. For those of you listening, if you'd like to talk to us more about ServiceNow, Knowledge, Agentic AI, or indeed anything else to do with enterprise service management, please do get in touch. Hope you found this episode useful, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.